So, motivation for second language learning is something I've struggled with in the past. It's something I think a lot of people struggle with, especially up front, whenever they decide on any language. I'm going to be up front. This is from the Journal of Research in English Education. So, this is about learning English as a second language. But I think the motivating factors in any second language are pretty similar, I would imagine. Pretty similar anyway. We'll start off by kind of going over some definitions. So integrative motivation and instrumental motivation are said to be the two types that basically all motivations can boil down to. They're like categories of motivators. The definitions for those are integrative motivation refers to language learning for personal growth and cultural enrichment. That is, the learner wants to learn the language to enter successfully into the target language society. I have some motivations that definitely fit under that umbrella, but also I have motivations that fall under the next category too, which is instrumental motivation. So instrumental motivation arises out of a need to learn that second language for either functional or external reasons. They involve the attainment of functional aims for learning, like passing exams and financial rewards. I also have a little bit of motivation that falls under that category, like I mentioned. So let's break that down, what I mean by motivations that fall under either of those categories. The article goes on to say motivational construct involves both instrumental and integrative motivation. So it's not just me that feels like, the motivating factors are between both of those categories. As most people, the article says that everyone, that I'm sure everyone that they've talked to have had the same kind of things, were partly motivated by whether it's financial or examination gains, or if it is purely out of wanting to assimilate in one way or multiple ways into a culture. Or community for that matter, because I'm not even sure what it really boils down to for me, which we'll get into. And finally, to wrap up the definitions, it is impossible to attribute language learning success to certain integrative or instrumental causes. So, what that means to say is that no one factor is going to get you all the way to your language learning goal. It can get you, like, you can have one goal and you can hit that goal and success. You've reached where you needed to be for a reason. But I think what this ultimately drives that is that there's not going to be one motivating factor that will get you from 0 to 100. It's going to be a combination of motivating factors for most people, unless you have like one very important motivating factor, like you depend on this language, whatever it be, for work or family related stuff. So it can be very driving to have one motivator, as long as that one motivator is very important. But for most of us, it's going to be a number of motivators that fall into it. So again, that all came from the International Journal of Research in English Education. And this article is called "The Impact of Motivation of English Language Learning." So, if you wanted to check that out, I'll have a link in the description. The real crux of this whole video that I wanted to do, sorry, my hand keeps falling because I'm not looking at it, are these three key factors here. The three key factors and motivations for second language study include a positive attitude towards the target language community, the enjoyment of learning, and also external pressures. Like we already talked about a few external pressures, but they can be great. That can be the biggest motivation, as far as I'm aware. Is like you have an external pressure that says, hey, if you don't do this, you're either, you're not a part of this community, whatever it might be. So we'll get into the positive attitude. So motivation to learn a second language depends on the attitude towards the second language community, and the desire to become a member of that community is really what positive attitude comes down towards. It's not that you have to always be positive about people in that community, but it's that you have a positive attitude for that community as a whole. So there has to be some kind of positivity that you gain from that community. It can't just be, boring and drab, and you're just doing it because, well, it's the only language offered by like your high school or something. You can't have like some dull attitude towards the community as a whole. So going on the enjoyment of learning, intrinsically motivated learners are most likely to continue their studies extrinsically than extrinsically motivated learners. So if you find an intrinsic motivation, you're just more likely to have an enjoyment out the gate to drive yourself daily to do some study. Integratively motivated people enjoy learning the second language and the culture of that community. So for me, it really does come down to I'm intrinsically motivated by the culture, whether that is media, whether that is, just history. The history of Asia is wild, and I love to delve into that stuff, which we'll get into more and more as time goes on with this channel. But the culture is so rich, it's easy to get lost in it. And then external pressures. So moving on to the last of the three key factors in motivation. Whether it is to please parents or receive a reward or to fulfill pragmatic aims, learners that are motivated to satisfy some external pressures can also be very driven to learn a second language. So let's use an example as an English learner. If you were to come to America with no knowledge of English, you can imagine that it would be very hard to find a job of any kind, even let alone like a well-paying job. Language ability is super important wherever you go in the world, whether it's, if you want to learn French, and you want to go to France and you want to be there for a while. If you want to work from companies that exist in France, you need the same kind of language ability that you might have in English. The same goes true for Japanese. So my main motivators are all based on pushing me towards Japanese. They don't have to be for this channel specifically for a lot of my videos, I don't think, because it's going to be more of these kinds of things, talking about motivations and how to keep everyone on the same page with where you're at, with where you want to be. So we'll just go through again my main motivations to see where maybe your motivations might line up with mine, or you might find your own motivation through the help of some of my motivations. We'll get some of this slide in here now. So some of my motivations are media. Obviously, I've mentioned media like over and over. I think media is a big motivator for most people. History and culture, travel, and translation work. So I'll break those down a little bit more. Media includes games, music, movies, anime, novels, light novels, visual novels, that kind of stuff. So that's one of my bigger motivators, is that like immediately I should be able to enjoy like light novels, visual novels, without having to do much outside of my home country. History and culture, that's something like I would want to study. So like history and culture and Asian studies and stuff like that is really where my mind's been focused for a long while. And adding language ability on top of that will just help, tremendously. It just will. All the history is written in those languages, Japanese and Chinese especially. Travel. So I do want to visit Japan. I don't know why I haven't yet. just never put aside the time or the money to go and visit Japan. But whenever I go there now, I have this specific goal in mind to, talk with people. I'm going to be somewhat fluent by the time I do get to go over there because of the way this year's shaping up. So, I'll just take this time and put my pencil to the paper and I'll push and we'll get fluency by the time I end up going to Japan. And hopefully by then, I'll be making some halfway okay videos as well where I can do translation on the fly and stuff like that for some videos. And then, yeah. So I want to visit, I want to do some backpacking while I'm in Japan. Visit some of the places that you would expect, like in Tokyo, but for the most part, visit the small towns. That just sounds like fun. So why not be able to visit those small towns with language ability? So at the very end of, I guess I called it the peak yesterday. The very peak of language ability, there is translation work to be had. So everyone wants something translated for a few bucks. Other people, I would do it for free, but there's companies out there who will pay you to do small amounts of translation work to at least get you started. So that's where I'm at with it. There's a list. There's an actual group of people that are involved in real life translations that you can also get involved with, but I'm not there yet. Well, I guess to conclude, since it's getting so dark now, motivation can go up or down depending on the context of language learning. So you need to find your key motivating factor for yourself. Motivation has a key role in the development of language skills. So being motivated makes learning fun. Being motivated in any of those ways can make learning more fun, unless it's added pressure. Unless you're adding pressure, then it probably decreases the fun. But still, most of those motivating factors will increase the fun factor of learning a second language. And then teachers can play a significant role in motivating learners to learn the second language, which means I'm no teacher. That ain't me. But we're here learning together, and learning from our peers is a key factor in itself in continued language success. If we can learn from each other and say, hey, this is right, this is wrong, can you help me with this? Yes, no. We push ourselves, and that's maybe the biggest takeaway is that we can't really be qualified as teachers, especially we're not native. We never will probably reach native level as much as we might push for the rest of our lives, but we can learn from each other still.